Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's podcast. I'm John DeCarlo, the editor of OurScoop.com, joined this week by a mostly full house and some familiar names. We've got Kyle Gauss with us, Caden Steele, Sam Cohen just can't stay away. I did invite him. He's with the Philadelphia Inquirer now, also the Penn State beat writer, but he's still in tune with Temple.
I was about to say I was not made aware that Sam was coming back. I knew Dante would be here.
And Dante Collinelli joining us on The Scoop this week.
I came because of Dante. Let the record show. I only came to listen to Dante talk.
Dante is now working full-time with the 33rd team. He's been watching some Temple film that seemed to excite Kyle on Twitter.
I just like the fact that Dante was coming back. That's why I was excited.
Everyone's just so excited to see me.
Dante,
Sam's here. Kyle's excited.
So you know how when you graduate high school, and then a couple months later, there was that one student that would come in and pop back in. They're like, let me see my favorite teacher. That's Sam. He's always he's lingered, right? You're like, oh, Sam's very involved, if not more involved in the group chat than he was before. Dante keeps us arm's length, so it's a treat when Dante decides to dip
it creates some intrigue, leaves people wanting more.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see Sam. I'm happy to see Sam. I interact with Sam a lot more than I interact with Dante, so it's less of a treat.
Dante, tell us what's going on in life. Tell us about the new gig and the new job and what it's like.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. I am co-workers with people who have a combined 50 Super Bowl wins and a lot of Hall of Fame gold jackets and all that jazz. It's very weird going to work, air quotes work, because I work in my office in my house. But, showing up and just being like, hey, we have something coming in from, I don't even know, Bill Parcells. I edited Bill Parcells' story the other day, right? That stuff's just really cool. So that is mostly my job. I'm an editor. You will never see my byline on the site, which honestly I'm okay with, because the other great advantage of working there is that we send our newsletter to NFL teams and they actually open it and read it. So I don't know if I could fathom Bill Belichick reading my words, at 5 a.m. when he's preparing for practice or whatever, which is pretty crazy. So it's a cool gig. I really like it. We have changed business models already since I've been there. So that's been interesting as well. It's the very rapidly changing environment. You hear that buzzword a lot when you're applying for jobs. They were absolutely correct about that when I applied for this job, but it's really cool. I'm really just trying to soak it up and enjoy it. It is not what I thought I'd be doing when I graduated with a journalism degree, if I'm being honest, but it's cool. It's very engaging in its own way.
You're still editing though?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What will the company do when the NFL expands and there already is a 33rd team?
That's a great question.
Maybe we are going to be the 33rd team, Kyle. Maybe that is the expansion. Maybe that's our in, really. That's how I get to the NFL. That's where I always wanted to be. This is my back door.
Playing a long game. You water the plant. You grow the plant.
I will ask that at my 7 a.m. content meeting in the morning, and I'll see what the execs have to say about it.
Please do. Please let me know what Bill Parcells thinks about my theory.
Famous number 9s other than Roy Hobbs from The Natural.
One is very prevalent right now.
Nick Foles.
His record's about to get beat.
Ted Williams, Roger Maris.
Mm-hmm. Steve McNair, the late great
Steve McNair. Yes.
Quincy Roche, Matt Ioannidis.
Justin Tucker, the greatest of all time.
Gilbert Arenas, that one year that he pulled a gun on his teammate. I think it was number 9.
Yep.
Michael Dogby.
Drew Brees. Did we say Drew Brees?
We didn't, but we just did now.
There we go. That's about it. It's all the famous number 9s.
Rodney Barnes with the Lakers.
Who was the first single-digit number 9? Was that Levi? Andre Nebula. Andre Nebula was before.
Andre Nebula was number 9.
Yeah.
Look
at that.
The Beatles number 9. No.
I ran that on TikTok this morning. A random video of them, the Beatles creating the first time they wrote the lyrics to "Get Back." Showed up on my timeline. That was interesting.
Love Potion number 9.
I was on TikTok today. I was thinking about you. I said, I wonder if Kyle's on
Do you think we have similar algorithms?
only food. Like I will sit there it's just food.
Mine goes from food. I'm on a lot of dad talk. It shows me a lot of like plumbing stuff, raising your kids stuff. I don't follow anybody on TikTok, so unlikely.
Friday's also National Podcast Day, so hopefully all of you will celebrate by listening to
by
this.
Venmoing Kyle.
We do have some actual practical stuff to get into. Not that I haven't enjoyed the banter with you guys. We'll be wrapping up Temple's 28-0 win over UMass and closing out conversation on that, talking about Temple's upcoming game against Memphis and answering some mailbag questions here. Let's talk about this 28-0 win over UMass. It was a little bit of everything. EJ Warner was overcoming his first substantial dose of adversity with the 2 early interceptions. They got their first defensive takeaway of the season. Alex Odom's interception was that first one. And then, of course, Layton Jordan had that one-handed interception return for a touchdown. It was the team's first shutout win since 2016. Yet another combination for the offensive line. We're starting to see a little bit more of a defined role for Quincy Patterson. David Martin Robinson returned at tight end. Dwan Mathis saw some snaps at wide receiver. Not much going there. Dante, I'll kick off with you here. You say you've been watching some Temple film, which is just like the stuff you've been watching with the NFL. Not much of a drop off, but what have you seen so far?
Well, it's funny you introed me like that because when I got the job, I really stopped watching. Like I have not watched a lot of college football this year. Like I really haven't. Like Saturday is one of my few days where I'm going to purge football. So as far as me, all I've done is watch NFL film for the past few months. So I sat down to watch Temple last night and let me tell you, man, they're bad. But to be more specific, UMass 28-0, I feel like it should have been 42-0, honestly. And I don't know if that's just me being overly critical because all I've seen is NFL stuff recently, but I don't know. I really don't think they played that well. I feel like they let UMass hang around a little bit. Some bad turnovers, different things. I'll be honest, I started watching the Duke game, which I did watch. That was the last college football game that I watched all the way through when it aired. And then I went right to UMass after Duke. I was like, all right, I'm going to watch game 1, and then we're going to go to game 4, and I'm going to see improvement. And I don't know, not really. UMass is such a bad team. They're a little bit better, but
well, they scored points, Dante. So that's an improvement.
Yeah, but you only scored 28 on UMass. That's that. They're a little bit better, right, on the score sheet, right? Because it's just they scored 28 points, but I don't know. They have a long way to go. This is about how I expected them to look, though. Frankly, This was not surprising to me. I didn't sit down and I was I think they're going to be way better than what I hope. But they're exactly what I was expecting. They're a young team. I think they have some good pieces. We can talk about that later. I like some of the pieces.
Are they better than the 4 years of football that you watched while you were at Temple?
Not my first year, right, Sam? Our first year, they were 8-5. That was the Independence Bowl year.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah. When they lost to Duke. And then our second year, they weren't bad either, right?
That was the bowl game where they lost to UNC.
Yeah. So Duke and UNC. So my first 2 years, no. My last 2 years, on paper, probably not, but in performance, maybe, if that makes sense, right? Because I think if you look at the second Rod Carey year on paper, just the roster, I think that roster probably looks better, but obviously they didn't perform better for a myriad of reasons.
You got Jeff's last season, and then Rod's first. No,
his only
Rod Carey's whole tenure, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, they are rebuilding. The rest of the Temple fan base hates you because they're coming off a win now and you're just killing their buzz. But I understand.
In fairness, and I don't necessarily disagree, but in fairness, you watched their 2 worst games of the season, right?
Well, I did watch Layton Jordan versus Lafayette because I saw 2.5 sacks and I was like, all right, I got to watch that one. But again, I'm being a little bit dramatic. They are what I expected them to be. They won the 2 games that I expected them to win. Yes, exactly. That press conference, I'm blanking on the coach's name.
Dennis Green.
Dennis Green. Thank you, Javon.
And we let him off the hook.
Well, that's Dennis Green, and then we are who we thought they were. Wasn't that?
That was
that was Herm, right?
Yeah.
No, Herm. Herm is playoffs.
No, Dennis Green. Yeah, Dennis Green did.
Dennis
we
Green
are
is.
who we thought we are.
Yeah,
and Jim
with the
Moore did
Cardinals.
playoffs.
Wait,
and Jim Moore did playoffs.
Who did? If you want to crown their ass, crown them.
That's the end of the Dennis Green.
That's the end of the Dennis Green,
right? Yeah.
Delivered
And then he slaps the podium and he walks off.
Yeah. But Jim Moore was playoffs, Dante.
Yeah. Dante,
Who wrote "I Have a Dream"? Who was that?
Martin Luther King.
Oh, okay.
Dante, at some point in our group text a couple of weeks ago, I think you said something to the effect of Layton Jordan has NFL bend, and you seem to be impressed with him. I don't know if I was supposed to put that out there, but what specifically have you seen from Layton Jordan? I mean, you talked about 2.5 sacks against Lafayette, the play he made last week. What have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I said NFL bend, right, like that is the ability to dip your inside shoulder underneath the hands of an offensive tackle and turn a really tight corner to the quarterback. And I have not watched a lot of Temple football before last night, so like I was just seeing highlights. So I saw a highlight of a Layton Jordan sack, and I saw somebody turn a corner that I would see an NFL edge turn, like guys who are really good turn corners like Layton Jordan does. The issue is that I discovered that is his only rush move last night. And there's not necessarily wrong with that. If you're going to have one trick, that's the best trick to have as an edge rusher, is just, I'm faster and more athletic than you, and I'm going to get to the quarterback. That's a great trick to have. And he's really good at it. So I ended up pegging him with like a late, like 6th or 7th round grade probably. And like, I don't really think that's an insult. Like, I think he's an NFL caliber player who can bend the edge. I think he's a good athlete. I think you just have to teach him where he's supposed to be when he's dropping back in coverage. He moves fine in space. His awareness is just a little bit shaky. And I don't know how much of fault he is for that. This is kind of a newer position that they're having him play as a true outside linebacker, right? So, how much experience does he truly have dropping into these short flats, covering running backs, different things like that? I don't know that he has a ton there. So if he gets better over the course of the season, that's a huge boon to his draft stock. I really think that he has the hardest part of being an edge down pat, which is rushing the outside shoulder effectively. He does that great. Everything else, I feel like I can teach. That's, what you're looking for in an NFL edge is, do you have the athleticism? Do you have the burst off the line? Do you have the natural talent to be successful? I think he has all those things. It's just everything else that worries me, which makes it sound like a negative evaluation, but I actually enjoyed watching it. Like it was a solid watch.
You said everything that I could teach. Are you volunteering to work him out?
I would give it a shot. I don't know that I'd be great, but I do love D-line play. Like outside of quarterbacks, that's where I spend the most amount of my time watching.
What about EJ Warner? Again, he obviously, people once people start looking at the name and people outside of the Temple fan base are going to say, "Oh, he's Kurt Warner's kid." After 2 starts, 2.5 games or so, I don't know how much you got to see of him, but if so, what do you think of EJ so far?
Yeah, I have to be careful because I think it's important to remember that he's a true freshman. Yeah. I think there's a lot of positives that you see in his game. I think particularly from a mental perspective, I think he understands the game very well for a true freshman. You see a lot of those really, really good touch passes that he throws. And I think that is a product of his ability to understand the leverage that defenders have and how to throw away from that, which is honestly like something that you see a lot of veteran quarterbacks struggle with, even going to the NFL. Like there are certain veteran quarterbacks who just don't have that natural touch. And it takes some time to develop that. And EJ's already got that. So I think his understanding of the game is really impressive. I think he's generally accurate in the short areas of the field. I worry about his long-term prognosis as a starting quarterback because he doesn't really have any tools. And I don't say that to like demean him, but he doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the athleticism. He doesn't have the arm strength. At the college level, I think you get away with that just fine. I think he can be a quality starting quarterback for Temple. I would not be surprised if he does well for Temple and he wins some games when the team gets a little bit better around him and he grows into his body a little bit more. But right now, I mean, I don't see a long-term development track where he's somebody that is legitimately pushing for NFL potential, but people said the same thing about his dad. And he ended up being pretty dang good, right? Kurt Warner didn't have a ton of tools when he was in college and when he came from Canada, right? The Canadian Football League at one point. So like
The Arena League, right?
Arena League. I knew it was one of those leagues, but yeah, I mean, like for me, like I think he's got a really good understanding of the game, and I think that's going to do him good. Like, honestly, I think I tweeted this because I saw the highlight. That one touch throw that he had going across the field, like toward the left against, I think it was UMass this week, was like arguably the best throw I've seen from a Temple quarterback since I started really like covering the team. And that's, not that long. That includes, Anthony Russo, Todd Centeo, Jordan Lynch, Dwan Mathis, but it's something. Like I really think he can be a quality starter for Temple. I'm just not sure about after that. But again, he's a true freshman. Trad Beatty, yes, Sam.
And Justin Lynch, not Jordan.
Right, Jordan was NIU. See, I've just like completely lost my Temple framework. I've been gone too long.
Caden, I know you got to dip out in a little bit. You covered the game for the Inquirer this weekend, along with some of the stuff. There's some other storylines there. What were your impressions of this 28-0 win over UMass?
Kind of going with Dante's take where it's a little more critical, where I thought, the first half was really unimpressive. The fact that they only had 7 points at halftime. But I think it's encouraging that EJ, was able to put those mistakes behind him. It really started at the end of that first half with that 34-yard throw to Donica Sanders on the right sideline. You could really see he started to get into it. And then that second half, in the fourth quarter, we caps it off with the 50-yard pass that Dante's talking about, the Donica Sanders. I thought you saw some real growth from EJ. Defensively, I thought they stood out again. I thought, overall, holding UMass to 0 points is what they were supposed to do. You're not playing a really good team, but, Layton Jordan making a good play, Kobe Wilson, Yavani Rigby having, a big game from the linebacker position, Alex Odom having, 9 tackles and an interception, Jalen McMurray having another good game. I think Stan said they were awarded Player of the Week. So having those guys, step up, I think it's good to see from the individual perspective. Some of these guys are going to be key pieces here long term, are starting to put it together, some of these young guys. But overall, for a team effort, I think it was still, a little disappointing that it was only a 28-point game.
Mm-hmm. Another storyline here to come out of the game is, again, Chris Wiesehan, Danny Langsdorff, and Stan Drayton, of course, are just trying to make the best of what they have with this offensive line. Adam Klein comes back from an undisclosed injury, starts at center instead. James Faminu stays out at right tackle. So you had Isaac Moore at left tackle, Bryce Thoman at left guard, who really struggled. Pro Football Focus people were not kind to Bryce Thoman with his rating. Klein at center, Wisdom Quarshie at right guard, James Faminu at right tackle. Bryce Thoman got beat even on that first touchdown pass, I believe, to Ian Stewart. He got beat there. Asked Stan Drayton about him, this past Monday, and he said, look, he's basically, I'm paraphrasing here, he's hanging in, he'll improve. What I'm trying to figure out is, and I think I have this a little bit later on, Stan said something like they had some guys that were sick who were going to be available this week. I'd be curious to know who he's talking about, if they're seeing progress from some other players here. But is that the biggest area of concern moving forward with this program?
I took that as him referring to Richard Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, could be Rich Rod.
That's what I thought. I thought he was basically saying like, look, Rich Rod was sick, and then Klein had to move into center, and that's
yeah. That could have been overlooking that very much so. I mean, I didn't know what my expectations were going to be from this line. I can't say that like anybody will look at the offensive line and said, okay, that's going to be a real strength for the team. But I think that might be the one thing. Again, I don't know truly how good these backs are. I think Stan, kind of is living in the middle when he says, yeah, our running backs need to run through contact and be better there, but there's improvement on the offensive line. But is the offensive line like the biggest concerning piece moving forward when you guys look at this team? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. You don't have a football team if you don't have an offensive line.
It's coming in hot.
It's that simple. And these guys, they can, I don't want to sound too critical, but it's rough watching them every week. I put in my story for the Inquirer for the preview of the UMass game. It's the last non-conference game of the yeseason. It's the last game for the offensive line to figure things out. I write that piece. It goes up Thursday. Yesterday, actually, a piece comes out from the Temple News that I wrote that said the O-line actually played worse. Like, it's rough for them. Klein at center wasn't even the best thing in the world, right? I mean, he warmed himself up, kind of found himself in a rhythm. But poor EJ, like a true freshman who is all of 5'10", $165, if we're being honest, like has to deal with behemoths crushing him constantly. Like, it's not good for his health. Or, like, it's a good thing the kid's been trained by his dad for Lord knows how long, because mentally he could be shaken up by now. Like, he had his first 2 interceptions of the season last week because he had 0 time back there. And it's been every time it's been probably 50% of the time he takes a snap, maybe more than that. Some big heavy is in his face. And it's just, it's tough to watch. I feel bad for the kid. Also, while we were on the topic of coaching rants, Herm Edwards did the "you play to win" rant since everyone seems a little confused. There we go.
He did.
I got my rants confused.
How much of it, let me ask you guys this question. How much of a challenge do you think it's going to be now? You know, when Matt Rule comes in, and not that he's been the only head coach to come in and rebuild the Temple football program. Al Golden did it, and the other guys had to build some continuity. They're going to need some help, and they've obviously tried looking for help in the transfer portal with guys like James Faminu and Rich Rodriguez and so on and so forth. Does it get harder to address the offensive line in the portal now because of the way the portal is? I mean, the chances of them getting, you know, one of the best players from the FCS level, every program in America is looking for those guys, right? Does Chris Wiesehan have a harder job now in rebuilding this offensive line that he did, you know, his first go around with Matt Rule?
Well, I think you can look across the river to Rutgers to see that plugging in the best guy from FCS doesn't always work, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because a guy's a good offensive line player in one scheme doesn't mean he's going to be good elsewhere. I think the way that you build a good collegiate offensive line is by keeping the same guys in the program and building them and letting them play. I mean, you saw it with prior to Wiesehan showing up when Rule played Deion Dawkins as a true freshman and left tackle against Notre Dame. Like, that hurt them that game and paid dividends for the next 3.5 years. So am I saying that James Faminu, as a 19-year-old Brit that's coming over and playing American football for the first time in his life, is the next Deion Dawkins? No. Do I think he's going to be better in 2025 than he is in 2022? I'd hope so. I'd hope if you aren't progressing as a football player in 3 years that maybe, you know, you're updating your resume. Like, I'm not sure. I think it's more of just, when we talked about the decision to play Adam Klein at center, and I just kind of said, well, maybe that's because Rich Rodriguez was sick, like Stan was alluding to. It might also be because, hey, look, Adam Klein has earned the right to play in this system. He's arguably our best offensive lineman, if not our second best offensive lineman. And getting James Faminu snaps at right tackle as a freshman is going to help a lot in future years. So I think it's just keep the guys in the system and hope that Wiesehan can coach them up. I don't think the transfer portal all of a sudden becomes that you're looking for 5 new starters next year or anything like that.
Yeah, and they've obviously, we've talked about this before, they've obviously addressed it so far with the 2023 class. And they have verbal commitments from Luke Watson, Cole Skinner, Eric King, and Kevin Terry. But again, those guys are going to come in, as long as they, stay committed and sign, those guys are going to come in as true freshmen, and might have to hope that, like Kyle said, it's a combination of guys like Bryce Thoman and James Faminu getting better, and maybe one of those guys can contribute as a true freshman, or maybe like a Jackson Pruitt gets better. But that would seem to me to be the one, not the only area of concern, but one where, and we've got a mailbag question about it later, where they're just definitely still trying to figure out that whole piece of it. On some plays, they look like the touchdown pass to the 50-yarder to Adonica Sanders was one of the few times I saw where EJ had a really truly clean pocket and had good protection around him. And again, regardless of who he's doing it against, he dropped in a really nice throw there. But I don't even think you need to be breaking down film to see some of the, whether they're missed assignments or people just getting overmatched. It's obviously an area of concern. Saw more.
Just add stats to that. Sure. 24 dropbacks. He was pressured on a third of them. On the third that he's pressured, his NFL quarterback rating was 39.6. When he's not pressured, it's 89. It's not rocket science, right? If you keep a pocket cleaner, you're going to have. If your whole thing is that you're like a smart quarterback who can read defenses and make the right throws, then time equals money.
And adding on to that offensive line thing, John, I think the whole Jackson Pruitt experiment, I think that's Well, that's what it is, an experiment. That guy's small for an old for an
He's
old
a little
lineman.
shorter.
Yeah, that's what I
shorter.
mean. Like height wise, that's a short kid. So
I think there's an important thing that I think Dante probably could speak about more than anything is there is a difference between being a good college player
Mhm.
and projecting to the next level. I've seen a crap ton of 6 foot successful,
including your namesake,
including Kyle's friend, Kyle Friend, was
Yeah.
arguably the best Temple center better than Matt Hennessy that Temple's had in the last 15 years, and he was 5'10". So
Mhm.
like you can get past it. Does that put a ceiling on his NFL future earnings? Probably.
Has Pruitt been bad?
He hasn't played.
No, he hasn't played. I mean,
Okay, I
Javon's-
wasn't sure. I was like, I kind of liked his high school film. I thought
Javon's just saying he's
I'm just saying he's shorter, so
He is shorter.
expectations. That's all.
I don't mind
Wait,
shorter
real quick.
guys in the interior.
Time out. I think we're talking about the wrong guy. Jackson Pruitt's 6'5".
No, he's Kyle. Listen, I'm Googling images of the kid right now to make sure who I see walking around campus is Jackson Pruitt. Jackson Pruitt's nobody 6'5".
Okay, so he's 6'3". There's no scenario where they're listing a 5'11" guy at 6'5".
Listen,
I can tell you that much.
I'll tell you this right now, Kyle. I've seen the kid and walked past them side by side. He's got a couple inches of generous height added to him.
How tall are you?
6'6".
Now some cleats might help him out, and they may give him a generous 6'2" or 6'3" with some cleats.
Mhm.
But yeah, 6'5", not happening.
What about before we move along to talking about Memphis here? Well, actually, before we get along to Memphis, I wanted to ask you guys about finally. And again, I'm not saying that anybody expected him to, to come in and be the best tight end in America, but David Martin Robinson comes in, returns a tight end. Maybe the highlight of the day was getting open, I guess, on that drag route or that crossing route on that 4th down conversion. Again, another thing we haven't mentioned yet is Stan Drayton continues to be aggressive on 4th down. And he helped come up that key 4th down conversion. What do you think he gives this offense now? And again, I think we need to be realistic about what Dave Martin Robinson has been in the past. It's not like he's, again, one of the best tight ends in America, but it did seem like he helped that offense a little bit on Saturday.
He took away an interception from EJ Warner's stat line. Because when they went for it on 4th and 1, and EJ kind of made probably a forced throw to a cover David Martin Robertson, he got credit to him. He made the catch and then added 30 yards after the fact. I think he's just the most established safety valve that's probably on this offense, right? I mean, for all that we talked about with Jordan Smith has only been playing the position for 18 months. His athleticism stands out at time, but David Martin Robinson's been doing it for 4 years. So I think it's adding another weapon to a team that needs another weapon.
Before we move along to Memphis, for Dante to talk about EJ Warner, we've been talking about EJ Warner. I asked Stan Drayton on Monday about EJ, the way he's processing this offense and how it doesn't seem to be out on the surface, just like a kind of like a one read and go type of offense and how he goes through his progression. So this is Stan Drayton on Monday talking about what he's seen from EJ Warner so far this season.
Whatever we ask him to do, for the most part, he's pretty good at it. He's a fast study. Obviously, you get into some 5-step timing throws. He's going to be a progression reader. And you know, when you're on 1st or 2nd down, you have an opportunity to present some run pass options. He's really good at delivering the football, and that's the thing we're excited about. He is a very decisive football player for the most part. And most young quarterbacks, they don't have their first read. You get them into a hensy, they start trying to find the 2nd or 3rd read. But this guy works it with a calm demeanor about himself, trusting the protection in front of him. So that is maturity for sure. He's ahead of his years for sure, but there's still a lot of things he can grow from and learn from in those situations as well.
All right, so let's talk about this Memphis team that Temple's playing Saturday. The Tigers are 3-1. They lost 49-23 to Mississippi State to open the season. They've rattled off 3 straight wins since then. They beat Navy 37-13. They beat Arkansas State 44-32, and then North Texas last week 44-34. Statistically, defensively, they're not going to blow you away in terms of the overall team totals, but their defense really helped them out last week. They had 3 takeaways, 2 interception returns for touchdowns. Jalen Allen had 1. Zay Collins had 1. And these guys aren't defensive backs. And on the one on Allen's touchdown, Greg Neumann tipped that pass that helped lead to that touchdown. They've been a bad 3rd down defensive team. They improved last week. They held North Texas to 3 of 15 on 3rd downs, but they allowed 371 yards last week. I don't know. I see this as a game that is, kind of like maybe the conversation we were having about Rutgers. I see this as a game where obviously Temple's not going to be favored in this game, but I don't know. I see some flaws in this Memphis team that Temple could expose here.
I feel like Temple and Memphis, well, we know the stats since they've played each other, since they started playing each other in 2013. Neither team has won back-to-back games in the series. Temple's up 4-3. Temple won last year, even though we know Temple was not the team that Memphis was last year. And you look at the start Memphis has gotten off to this season, looks like another year where, hey, Temple could be able to hang in with them. This is one of those series where it's just two teams who always compete against each other. You can't really provide too much analysis to it. It's been a coin toss every year. I think this is going to be the same case this weekend. History says go Memphis, but yeah.
Yeah, Vegas says go Memphis, considering they're a 20-point underdog. Temple's 20-point underdog in this game. I think it's two programs that do things the polar opposite ways of each other. I think Memphis likes to hang its hat on offense and Temple likes to hang its hat on defense. That being said, this isn't like there's no Calvin Austin on this team, right? There's no Darrell Henderson. There's no Kenny Gainwell on this team. So like my general rule of thumb with NFL is just like draft Memphis running backs and like things will work out. There's no player like that on this team. From what I've seen. Their quarterback, Seth Hennigan's arguably the best quarterback that Temple will play in a while. And definitely the best to this point, I would say. But he doesn't have the weapons that he had last year. Eddie Lewis is a Rutgers bounce back at wide receiver who's good, not great. Their offensive line's pretty bad, and it was pretty bad before Austin Myers and Jonah Gamble went down to left tackle, left guard. So if those two aren't ready to go and now you're playing their backups, then all of a sudden you're dealing with even more of maybe an advantage on Temple's side. Hennigan's been he's been sacked 9 times this year, which is not ideal for somebody like him. So I think it's like a game that like the fact that it's a 20-point dog is surprising to me because like I don't think they're that far apart, but I think there's like Memphis is definitely the favorite in this game. But their defense is bad. 100th in scoring defense, 107th in total defense, 118th in third down defense. Bad defense, bad offensive line usually sets itself up for the possibility of an upset. So, see.
Plus 20 is a lock.
What's that?
Plus 20, that's a lock on the parlay this week.
I don't know because, Temple's shown some ability to, if they can't get the running game going, all of a sudden they're going 3 and outs and some things, then Memphis is the type of team to give them those extra possessions. Also, let's not glance over the fact that like Temple turned the ball over 4 times against Lafayette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Turn the ball over 4 times against Memphis. You lose by 3 scores. That's not unreasonable.
Dante, I know you were saying you haven't watched any. You've been focused obviously on NFL film and NFL things now, working for the 33rd team. Before that, you saw Seth Hennigan last year. Do you remember what you thought of him as Stan Drayton? Again, he could have been just engaging in coach speak and trying to be complimentary to the opponent that he's playing, but he called him the real deal. When you watched him last year, did you see any traits from him to think, okay, maybe this guy could play at the next level? Do you remember having that type of impression of him? I feel like the opinions on him vary. He's been a solid quarterback. He's been very good at times. He was really good against Temple last year. Last week, 19 of 29 for 141 yards, 2 TDs, an interception. Again, the 2 injuries that Kyle's referencing, Austin Myers, their left tackle, and Jonah Gamble, that's the left side of his line. They're considered day-to-day. Brian Moss-Namowitz, who's part of the Memphis rival site, the Tiger Sports Report, I did their podcast last night. He told me today, he said, if I were a betting man, I'd probably bet that they won't play, but we'll see. He said that Ryan Silverfield tends to just say that everybody's day to day. So that could be a definite disadvantage for them if he doesn't have them. But do you remember what you thought of him last year? Was he on your radar at all as one of the better quarterbacks in the country? Or do you think people were being a little too praiseworthy with him there when he would get that tag?
Oh, I definitely do not think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I do think he's one of the best quarterbacks in this conference for sure. I think that he is. Memphis has had some quarterbacks who put up a lot of numbers, but I think for my money, he is very much like a safer option than some of those guys, right? Because Brady White would put up a ton of numbers, but he'd also throw 5 passes a game that were buddy, what are you looking at? And typically Hannigan doesn't have those. He's not quite as explosive. I don't think they generate as much big plays, but he also limits you on the turnover side. Like, I just think that he is a good college quarterback. Like that was my impression of him. Now, I have not sat down and watched more than his start against Temple last year. So maybe he got a lot better this year. Maybe there's stuff on film this year that I haven't seen. I have no idea. I've not watched a single snap of Memphis football this year. My impression of him against Temple last year was good college quarterback. I think he gives you a little bit more cerebral ability than somebody like Brady White, but I think he leaves a little bit to be desired as far as creating outside the pocket, pushing the ball down the field. So I think it's kind of pick your poison there for Memphis quarterbacks. But this will be the last thing I say before I hop out. Like, I think Kyle was right in his assumption that, like, this is not the Memphis team of old. Like, I've just sit here reading the roster and kind of reading some stats as you guys were talking, so I could say something of substance here. Not a ton of like really big playmakers and names here. I mean, I think that Temple can cover that 20-point spread. I really think they can. But to Javon's point as well, probably not the best matchup. Memphis's offense is going to test your communication on defense, and I do not think Temple's communications on defense is even remotely good right now. And Memphis's high speed spread horizontal attack is going to really, really test that. Don't love that matchup for Temple, but we'll see.
If there's anything that Kyle loves more than 7-Eleven burritos and Wawa lobster biscuits, being told that Kyle is right. If you guys could see the video of Kyle, as soon as Dante said that, Kyle put his hands up in the air like a third grader would scored his first touchdown or won like a 3-legged race at a field day. He just looked so jubilant. It was pure.
I used to crush 3-legged races. Those are all about communications. 1-2, 1-2. Real quick, it's a completely different offensive coordinator is an important thing to call out with this. So like,
and it's not one of Kevin Johnson's disciples either.
Right. So I don't think Memphis just is not as explosive, and I think as horizontal this year as they have been in the past.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that. It was great hopping on with you guys, though. I got to go.
Love you, Dante.
Love you, buddy. Thank you for hopping on. Kyle, Javon, let's get to some predictions here.
Javon, go ahead.
I don't like betting against history. You guys know I'm a boomer at heart. History says take Memphis. I think I'll go 30-22 just because.
30-22.
What's interesting to me is a Temple. I was kind of going back to last year's game because all I really remember is the questionable. Was it a fumble or was it an incomplete pass call from the tight end?
Wait, that was last year? No, that wasn't last year.
Was that? I mean, it couldn't have been the year before. Was it 3 years ago?
I believe that was 3 years ago. Was it? There
was definitely a questionable call last year.
The call.
I thought it was they couldn't get the replay on the tight end about whether or not he put the ball on the ground.
No,
that might have been
Magnifico, like Joey Magnifico. That was 3 years ago. I thought that was not last year, right?
That was not 3 years ago, was it?
Well, it was. And
it couldn't have been 2020 because that was in Memphis.
No, it was in Philly.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Last year they played in Memphis.
Regardless, that was in 29. The Joey Magnifico call was 2019.
What
that
happened
was not last year?
What happened last year then? There was definitely a questionable thing in like the fourth quarter last year. Doesn't matter. My takeaway was that Temple actually ran the ball a little better than I remember. Like they were able to get like their $150, $160, $170 or whatever off of on the ground. I don't think by any stretch of imagination Temple's winning this game. Like I said in the past, I don't think that this is that big of a difference, but I think going on the road, young team, I think Temple might be able to get the ball going a little bit on the ground against this defense, but I still think that Memphis wins this like 31-20.
Yeah, I think this is like a 35-21 game. I agree with Dante. I think that Temple can cover the spread here. Again, Memphis is just a little bit of a weird team to figure out. I think that I'm a little bit more, slightly more encouraged than Dante is in terms of course, then Dante said he said that Temple's about where he thought they would be right now. I do think that they are making some tangible progress, but yeah, I don't think this is a game they're ready to win yet. But again, this is not an unbeatable Memphis team. I think this one lands somewhere around 35-21, 35-24.
I'll say this. I watched the Ryan Silverfield press conference today, and one of the questions, I don't want to put, blast any certain reporter, also because I don't know their names. They asked, like, are you already scoreboard watching because you want to see whether teams are doing as you compete for a conference championship?
Oof.
I don't think Memphis is anywhere close to a conference championship
No,
caliber team.
yeah, that's
Like anywhere close. I think like last year, like they went 6-6 last year, and I think they might go 6-6, 7-5 this year.
I don't think anyone's a lock for AAC champion this year.
No,
No.
it's the weirdest conference year in a while. Like everybody's already lost a game, which last year was usually you're in the past, like is it UCF or is it Cincinnati? It's going to be 9-0, and then they're finally going to face each other. Everybody's already something in one. So,
yeah.
wide open.
Yeah. Before we get to the mailbag here, Javon, I wanted to kind of pause a little bit and have you talk a little bit about your conversation with Khaafiq Myers. So if you're an owlscoop.com subscriber, you had the chance to check out Javon's recruiting piece on the Neumann-Goretti point guard. I guess they got a couple point guards between him and Robert Wright. They've got a really good team. He came in for an official visit last week. And again, I don't want to give away all the content there, but Javon, if you could give people just a quick scan, a quick summary of what you guys talked about and your general impressions of his game and his recruitment so far.
Yeah, not the first time I've talked to Khaafiq. I love the kid. I think he's got some dog in him. He's got a +4, +5 wingspan, takes pride on defense, your traditional throwback point guard. He's got that South Philly floater.
Not to be confused with the Southwest Philly floater, which picks up a little bit of speed from the airport. So that's on it. So
Which last I heard, it was making money in Reykjavik.
yes.
And
Shout out to Tyrone Garland. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
to add on
Ron
to
laughed. Kyle didn't laugh.
it, to add on to it, no, that was a good one. Picks up some steam in the airport. Where was I going with this? Oh, also, his assistant coach John Brennan calls him Big Game Myers, and it's definitely for a reason. He shows up in big moments for his team. He told me in particular, so this is for anyone who wants to get out and watch some Philly high school hoops. When Neumann-Goretti plays West Catholic this year, West Catholic coached by a friend of the show, Miguel Bocachica, get out there and watch it. He says he's got something for them. This is actually the first time in his career that he's been able to play West Catholic. So when they see each other, he's like, Zion Stanford, good for him committing to Temple. Temple's obviously on Khaafiq's list, but he's got something for the Birds this year. So get out and see that game.
It's a animosity between two likely-ish future teammates. Like I don't think we're like giving. I think Khaafiq Myers, if he had to make a decision right now, it would be probably Temple.
I think so. I wouldn't say any animosities, just normal competitive nature. Like I play in the Catholic League and I haven't played these guys yet. I got something for them.
Javon, is his height a concern?
No, because I don't think he's done growing.
Okay.
Like so,
would you say his growth plates are still open?
Yes, he's 5'10", $155, $160, but he's got, like I said, he's got a +4, +5 wingspan, which tells me he's got another 2 inches of growth on him, and he's going to spend these next 2 years in the weight room, from what he's told me. So I don't think his size is a problem at all.
Okay.
Heard it here first from Dr. Edmonds.
If he ends up coming to Temple and that all of a sudden becomes a situation where people that were clamoring for homegrown talent, well, now you just got 3 straight classes of Catholic League guys. So here it is.
Yep. Yeah. Let's look at the mailbag here. We got a few questions, 3 or 4 to get to. First one, again, these are screen names from the owlscoop.com message boards. First one here comes from the screen name Matt Deebs. Question is, any thoughts on what the constant shuffling of the offensive line is accomplishing? Maybe Adam Klein was their best option at center this week, but the snaps were off all game. Yes, I mean, I think Adam Klein would admit that he had a couple of low snaps. I don't think they're trying to – I think the only thing they're trying to accomplish with the constant shuffling is just simply trying to find a combination that works as they try to grow together. I don't know that it's any –
I don't think it's that level.
Than that.
I don't think it's that level. I think for the most part, they're just trying to find 5 healthy guys out there.
Yeah.
Like I think for the most part, the decisions have been made based upon injury or health related.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think in an ideal world, if you could ask Chris Weisian coming to the season, he's like, I would have loved to have the 12 exact same combinations the entire season. College football, unfortunately, does not work that way.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing he's had, look, after 4 games to be 2-2, not such terrible shape for them to be in, considering the talent that they inherited, the type of program that they inherited. And they've had the ability to, for the most part, play the same 5 guys through most games. But yeah, I'd say that right now, I think they're just like Kyle said, they're looking for 5 healthy guys and the 5 best guys, but they're clearly not done trying to figure that out. Next question here from SoCal Al is a screen name. This is a basketball related question, non-Temple / AAC question. So this is about the decision from the NCAA about Memphis and Penny Hardaway. Please decipher what NCAA sanctions on Memphis, what the implications are more to follow. What the NCAA does constantly befuddles me. Help.
Means literally nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean a damn thing.
No.
They got fined $5,000 and they had to vacate a non-conference win that James Wiseman played in.
Yeah, I think it's only 3 wins in total that Penny's losing off his record. It's nothing, literally.
Yeah. So they got off. They came out of this pretty much unscathed, and so I don't know what the NCAA does constantly befuddles me. I don't know if the NCAA really befuddles me. They're consistently inconsistent, but they're I don't know.
I mean, I think it's 2022 NCAA that's just trying to hang on to still being an entity.
Yeah.
It's just still trying to stay relevant, right? So
yeah,
every now and then you'll see crap like this come out, and they hope that Alabama just doesn't decide one day that it wants to go play in the Alabama Football League and move on from there. So
yeah,
I wouldn't worry too much one way or the other about this.
Next question here comes from the screen name GL and PA. With the loss of programs like Houston and Cincinnati next season, will there be a concerted effort to bring in some top-ranked programs to help our strength of schedule? That was a basketball question.
Hold on. So is he or she asking? Is this a scheduling thing? Like building a stronger non-conference schedule?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's college basketball. Aaron McKee knows college. I'm pretty sure. Maybe. Listen, we've seen them put Vanderbilt on the schedule. Ole Miss. Like, they put some SEC schools on the schedule. They played in some classics that's got decent competition.
I think this year they did a good job of doing that.
Yeah.
I think the past couple years were kind of like, let's just look, we're a young team. Let's just play. Let's just try to get the blood flowing and hopefully get some easy wins against. Actually, are they playing UMBC again this year? I think so, right? Or UMES? Are they playing UMES again this year? I think so. I think it's their bye game. One of them. But yeah, I think for the most part, I think they're adjusting to now they have a team that they want to keep this thing going. They're not in a 4-year rebuild anymore. They're towards the end that you're going to keep seeing them try to schedule those out of conference games.
Well, yeah, they're going to have
to. They need to.
We've talked about before, when we try to have some fun with the whole John Rothstein, should Temple go back to the A10, rehashing that. But yeah, they're going to have to, because we don't know what's going to happen in conference realignment. You can't just, if you're a Temple fan, you can just hope that they end up in a bigger conference just because. And if they end up in a watered down American for basketball, you're going to have to try to be, like we've said in the past, you're going to have to try to be like Gonzaga. I'm not saying they're going to go from 0 to 60 and end up in a national championship game in the span of a year. But you're absolutely going to have to beef up your non-conference schedule.
And we do know that the American. Go ahead, Kyle.
In fairness, Wichita State, Memphis, and SMU are not it's not Gonzaga and St. Mary's out there.
Right.
There's still some.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah. And we'll have to see what happens in the future. But they're going to have to. Last question to round things out here. I thought there might be one more. I'll double check. From Green Street Al. Squint hard at the Temple football schedule and based on who looks better, worse, the same as expected. Squeeze 4 more wins out of our schedule in a bowl berth. Maybe.
So who would be the 4 wins?
Who would the 4? Yeah, he's asking who would the 4 wins be? I mean, Tulsa, Navy, and USF. Or
no? And USF hasn't known the schedule this year.
Yeah,
or are they?
Yeah, they are.
USF's at home. Yeah.
Or ECU. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're an optimist, which I don't think this is going to happen, I think you hope that they play Memphis well, and you leave it being like, okay, they can kind of go toe-to from this. Javon, is next Thursday or 2 Thursdays from now your birthday?
The UCF game? Yes, it is.
They're going to get clobbered in that.
Yes.
So you get to that point, you're 2-4. Then you have if there is a soft underbelly to the schedule, it's those next 3 games. You get Tulsa at home. I'm just assuming that guys from Tulsa, Oklahoma have never played football in Philadelphia, and there's an opportunity there for a not very good team to come to Philadelphia and lose. Navy on the road. Navy's not great this year, even though they did beat ECU. And then South Florida at home. Florida teams traditionally don't play well at Temple in November. So
but then they've got talk about the 2 games after that.
So
that's the problem.
So at that point, if everything goes right, which again I don't think it will, if all of a sudden then you're 5-4, you lose those next 2 games. Houston and Cincinnati, you lose them, you're 5-6, and then you're hoping against hope that a Thanksgiving-ish game against ECU at home that you can somehow squeak out a win.
You're hoping your confidence isn't too deflated by the way Houston and Cincinnati
It's also
mop the
just
floor
like
with.
it's so strange. Like college football at the end of the year, like I think ECU is pretty good this year, or at least better. But like, let's say things don't go well and they're 4-7 going into that game and they have nothing to play for. Like
No,
that's not
a good point.
unreasonable that Temple could then like squeak one out,
Yeah.
get to 6-6 and figure it out. Like college football is a combination at the end of the season. It's a combination of like, do these teams still have something to play for? And if they don't, is the coaching staff able to keep them like focused? They still have something to play for. You saw
Yeah.
in 2013, Temple goes down to Memphis 1-10. They had literally nothing to play for,
Mhm.
but Rule kind of kept them together and they go out and they steamroll Memphis and they have momentum going into 2014 and everything's great.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking is there a way to get to 6-6, that's probably it. If they beat Memphis on Saturday going to the bye, then
It helps a lot.
yeah, then
Yeah.
like, okay, like let's rock and roll. Let's see what you can do. But there are some stretches where it's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Key takeaways from this is the Temple could be bowl bound, and Javon's birthday is coming up. So listeners, think of
When they announced the
Javon
schedule,
for his
Javon was
birthday.
like, oh, UCF gave him my birthday. I was like, oh, what a terrible gift for you, buddy.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
I was going to follow up with that until you said it. It's like, yeah.
what a terrible gift. Go
Well,
to the bounce house on Javon's birthday. No, like, that's the name of UCF Stadium, the bounce house.
I thought
not
Yeah,
like
it was just
oh,
a
yeah.
good play on
I thought
words.
it was like a family party where they have a bounce house for Javon, and he's like, guys, come on in, get in the bounce house. Don't be afraid.
No, it was just a good play on words.
Well, thank you to Dante for hopping on, and Sam for just really more than anything, just hopping in to listen. And thank you to all of you for listening once again. And we
Hey,
will
don't forget Caden.
Caden.
He stopped in for his 30 minutes
He
before
did
the play.
stop it. He did stop it. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.